few things to say, but I want to do it in the Shulchan Aruch. The rest is going to be classified as a Bartera. The Shulchan Aruch is definitely a Bartera. Now, the Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, the last area is a section called Hilchos Einoah of Neighbor's Das. The laws that deal with the prohibition of Einoah, which generally is translated as cheating. Neighbor's Das means misrepresentation, not really stealing one's mind, but it means misrepresenting what you're selling, what you're saying, what you're doing. The word Einoah, however, generally translated as cheating, actually means to cause pain to another person. To oppress. And the last secret of this section, the Rebbe says, and it's not a Lubavitcher thing. For those of us who say it's not the Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch, it's not real, so simple. The Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch too. A person needs to be very careful regarding causing his wife pain. I'm not talking about beating. Beating is actually grounds for divorce. But even verbally hurting one's wife, that's besides not hurting anybody else, particularly his wife. Unless that's misunderstood, it's explicit. She laid the tzara of advarim to not cause her pain with words. No put-downs, no disses, no snide remarks. That is forbidden in the Shulchan Aruch. Because a woman, her tears are available. Women cry more easily than men. Up to feminists, but normal women, they are more apt to cry when they are offended. The punishment from above for having caused her pain also comes quickly. That's the negative, not the positive. A person should always be heedful regarding respecting his wife. And for those of you or me who always want to know, what is the payoff? I behave, what am I going to get for it? The other says, the blessing in the home is because of the wife. She's happy, you'll have a good home. She feels oppressed. The blessing will elude your home. Cast over Chacham, and so the sages have said, the people in their generation, who comes in the Talmud, honor your wives, so that you should be rich. And he does not mean morally rich, he doesn't mean emotionally rich, he means financially rich. Well, you have to get a job too, or buy a lottery. It's better to get a job and buy a lottery. However, what he is saying here is that respecting one's wife and having shalom bayis in the home is not only morally good and ethically good, it is a keli, it is a vessel for God's blessings of wealth. Okay. This is business 101. Okay. My name is Gershon Schusterman. Let me tell you what I'm not. I'm a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a marriage counselor. None of the above. I have a rabbinic degree. I got smicha once. But I am My parnasa today is from business. Unfortunately, I didn't bring my business card, so I can't promote myself that way. So let's just say, for the purpose of this evening, I'm just a regular guy. And I do get into a fight with my wife once in a while. It's true. I have had 2 very good marriages. The first one did not end in divorce. The first one ended with my wife unfortunately passing away. And then I remarried. And the second marriage, with 11 children, is more challenging than the first marriage with no children. Or even the first marriage with 11 children. Because they come one by one, so you sort of get used to it. But to marry a woman and then to foist 11 children on her in one shot, the truth is, I only told her I had 6, and I hid 5 of them in one of the third bedroom. And after a few days, we got them out one by one. She didn't notice. But the second marriage had its unique challenges. And here, 25 years later, we're still married. And we married over the kids. So I did learn something in the course of these 2 marriages, some of which I will share with you tonight. I also have the benefit of, I'm not a marriage counselor, but people ask me for marital advice. I do my best. Most of the time, I say something worthwhile that will come back to me next week. My first marriage counseling took place when I was 24 years old. I had 1 kid, 1 child who was 3 months old. I knew about as much about marriage as I knew about childbirth. And I was the co-director of the Hebrew Academy out in Orange County. And there was this couple. They were in their young 30s. They had 2 children. One was in 1st grade, one was in kindergarten. They said, "Do you want to speak to me?" Okay, I sat down with them, and they want to talk about their marriage. To myself, I said, while they were talking to me, they're married for 9 years. I'm married for 2 years. I'm going to advise them about marriage. I have 1 baby. They have 2 significant children. I'm going to advise them about marriage. But I have the title Rabbi. They think I know something. I'm going to make believe that I know what they're asking. So they started the discussion, and then somebody wound up and pitched his first complaint against his spouse. Her spouse, I don't know who was first. And having heard what he said, I said to myself, well, you know, I know what she's going to say. And lo and behold, she said it. And as she was saying what she said, I said to myself, I know what he's going to say as a rejoinder. And lo and behold, he said it. I mixed in every once in a while to keep the game going. And I had to control myself not to smile, because what they were saying was so shallow, so obvious what was going on, that they thought they were the first people in the world that ever got married, the first people in the world that ever got into fights. And I gave them whatever advice I gave them. And to myself I said, this marriage is not going to last more than 1 year. Sorry to say, it was wrong. So, all of you here that want me to come up with the answers to the problems in your marriage, not tonight. That's going to be next week. But tonight, let me tell you, there is nothing unique. There are different flavors. Baskin Robbins, I'm looking for the 32, 33, and if it's kosher, it's definitely not totally strong. The fights come in different flavors, but the basic stuff of which the fight is made up of is very common, and very often it has to do with ego. We'll get into that in a little while. But the point I'm trying to say is people are the same. The fights, the core of the fight is the same, and ultimately the resolution is the same. There are certain extreme situations, but I'm talking in general. This class has 3 sessions. Tonight the subject is man the master of his home. Getting down to some of the nitty-gritty of marriage, I think we might leave some of that for next week. The final week, which is how to keep the fire going. But for today, I want to establish certain principles upon which a Jewish marriage is built. And if it's a Jewish marriage, it is built on Jewish foundations. Whoever writes this letter to people at their wedding, they should build a Bais Bezalel on the Seder HaTorah v'HaMitzvah, on the foundation of Torah and mitzvahs, as they are illuminated with the luminary of Torah, which is the teachings of Chassidus. But the home is built on the foundations of Torah, and I want to share with you some principles of Torah that are very useful in making a marriage. Adam and Chava, remember them? Gan Eden from the Garden of Eden. You think they got along so well? You know what it says? Chava offered Adam to eat from the Eitz Hadas. And he ate from the Eitz Hadas, the tree of knowledge. Then when God confronted Adam and said, "Why did you eat from the Eitz Hadas? Didn't I say you shouldn't eat from the Eitz Hadas?" The first thing he did, like some of us might do when confronted, he copped out and said, "She did it. He must know living up She gave me of the tree and I ate. It's her fault. I'm innocent. She seduced me and I gave it." One of the commentators, is there a Chaim HaKadosh who says, "She gave me of the tree." Eitz means tree. Eitz means wood. She took a branch of the tree and she beat me until I ate from the Eitz Hadas. That's his interpretation of "He must know Liman Ha'etz."
You have to find it,
All right, so, but in Torah there are many ideas about marriage. Many of them are abstract, and many of them are spiritual and mystical. I'm going to try to choose some that have a down-to-earth application. There will be time for questions and answers later. But let me say this, and I mean it seriously, not to make a joke. There's a big difference between questions and problems. Questions require answers. Problems require solutions. This is not the place for the solutions to problems in marriage, this is a good place for questions and answers. We'll talk about problems later tomorrow. As a human being, I want to say, there is no better life than a married life. The Gemara, Yavamas, has a whole list of qualities that a person gets by being married. First, as he's called an Adam. Adam means a mensch. Doesn't mean a man. Adam means a mensch. A person is not a complete person until he is married. For that itself is worth getting married. Gemara says that a person doesn't have simcha unless he is married. On a practical level, a person who isn't married is not mature. He's relatively mature, but does not develop his full maturity potential because he doesn't have to test who he is against another person. He's on his own, and you see that when people get married late in life, often people get married late. They have decent marriages, but sometimes they're two people living together, they share certain things, but the integration, the harmony that a marriage can have is more difficult to achieve once you are a fully developed person. By Torah standards, marriage should be early. Then 18 is considered the ideal age for marriage. There are those who will say, well, that was different in those days, and these days it's different. And in different communities, in different Orthodox communities, there are different ages of marriage. About it's rarely been 18, it's early 20s, mid-20s. The years have changed a little bit today, a little later. In other communities, it's still 18, in other Hasidic communities. Getting married young, when the people are still not fully developed, where there is still a certain amount of immaturity, it's like molding two pieces of clay that are still soft and warm, and they mold easily. Once they get hotter and more calcified and more structured, and you try to fit them together, there are little cracks, little fissures. They don't blend so well together. The younger you get married, with the minimal amount of maturity necessary, and with the parental support necessary, as it is normally in the Hasidic communities when they get married at 18, it works well. You don't have to wait until you're 30 or 35, and you don't have to try marriage out for a period of time. Statistically, people who live together before marriage, as opposed to those who don't live together before marriage, those who don't live together before marriage, statistically will have a longer and more successful marriage than those who do live together before marriage. Counterintuitive by only modern psychology thinkers, but statistically they're simply wrong. So you get married, you learn responsibility, you learn how to integrate with another person, and you have companionship, intellectual companionship, emotional companionship, mental companionship, and physical companionship as well. If I can wax poetic for a moment, looking at marriage, looking at life from the vantage everything is possible. In a good marriage, the couple supports each other, fortifies each other to the point that you can be not only all that you can be, but you can actually be more than you thought you can be. You have your own built-in cheering squad, egging you on, encouraging you, complimenting you. And that's all part of what a good marriage does, and that's all part of what a good couple does for each other. On the other hand, the Gemara says, the Gemara says, interprets it, there is nothing worse than a bad marriage. A bad wife is as bad as death. That was King Solomon's wisdom. King Solomon should know he had 1,000 wives. He was a one-man survey. And he wrote 2 books. He wrote 2 books, but he wrote Mishlei and he wrote Koheles. Mishlei, and he wrote Shir Hashirim. Shir Hashirim is a love song which he wrote when he was young. Koheles, Ecclesiastics, he wrote when he was old. It's somber, it's morose, it's the voice of wisdom. Let's stick to Shir Hashirim. Here's a joke, which you've all heard. Bears repeating because I try not to say silly jokes. Even though this one's pretty silly, but here's a message here, and there's a true message here. The joke is, the man said, I am the master of my home, and I have my wife's permission to say so. That's a joke. But there's a lot of seriousness in it, because a man is not the master of his home without his wife's support of the marriage, and without his wife's support of making him the master of the home. Women are a different species from men. That's a given. The longer you're married, the more you'll find that out. It is true. I don't know if I should quote that line that Dennis Becker has on his show about women. The woman asked the psychologist, how do you understand women so well? It's easy. Think of a man, and I take away reason, and I take away responsibility. There you have it. Men can laugh about that. Women don't find it funny at all for some strange reason. They lose their sense of humor when they hear this quote. It's not, doesn't mean that women don't have reason, and it doesn't mean that women are irresponsible. But their reason often is not reasonable to men, and their sense of responsibility often doesn't make sense to men either. So they are agreed unto themselves, and you know what? That makes life very, very exciting. But recognizing that a woman is not a man in a woman's body will give you pause. We all know this intuitively. We all know that women are different. They're not weaker. In some ways, they're stronger. They resonate to different things. They react differently. And if we want to put them down, we have words with which to put them down, but we can't live without them, not only to raise a family, but we are incomplete without completion that a woman gives the man, and the workout that she gives him to make him into a bigger, better, stronger, wiser person. What is the man's role in the family? I've chosen 4 things. There are probably more. Some of them fit into these 4. Some I haven't touched on tonight. The man is the leader of the family. The man is the take charge guy of the family. It doesn't mean in absolutely everything. And leader doesn't mean he does everything. Men are into sports. There are different sports. In each professional sports, there are certain positions that somebody has to call the shots. Somebody has to take the lead. I don't know enough about football to know quarterback. I don't know. Baseball, I know in the infield there has to be somebody who says who's supposed to do what, because it's very quick and somebody has to call it. But a football team needs 11 players, and a baseball team needs 9 players. You need every single one. And someone is the designated one who calls the shots. It gives him certain advantages. He is part of the team. He does not, he cannot, should not, and will not do it on his own. So yes, a man is the master of the home. Notwithstanding that we live in the 21st century, the Torah is very clear that the man is the Baal, the man is the master of the home. That means he calls the shots, but he needs the partnership of the other half of the marriage. Man has a responsibility to be a breadwinner, a responsibility to bring home the kosher meat. That's the man's job. It's his job to be the breadwinner. It doesn't mean that a family can't have an arrangement where he is the house husband and the wife is the wage earner. Sometimes it's necessary, sometimes it works better. There's nothing in the Torah that forbids it, but that is not the common way Torah sees it as having to do. The man should be the mashpia. In Kabbalistic terminology, the man is the mashpia and the woman is the makaber. The man is the grantor and the woman is the recipient. We use the term, mystically. It has its meaning. It has its imagery in the sexual union, and we use the term mashpia in terms of the spiritual mentor is called a mashpia. The man ideally should set the spiritual tone in the home. The wife has a special role in developing that tone and implementing it. Women are much closer to the children. They can develop and nurture the children with that tone better than the man, but the man's responsibility is to set the tone. Ideally, the husband is more learned, more knowledgeable than the wife, so that if questions come up, she will turn to him to provide the answers. If he doesn't know the answer, get the answer. She's just as capable as him. It's calling the rabbi and ask, what do you do under these circumstances? Frankly, that's his responsibility, not her. And finally, the husband is the one who carries the responsibility for the family. He can share that responsibility, but he can't give it away. It is his responsibility first and foremost. She carries it as well, but the responsibility is his. If he gives up these roles, then he is not the man of the house. I was at a Fabrenium in 1968. It was a Kiddush in 770. This was before the Rebbe Fabrenium every Shabbos. And an older chassid was talking, there was an offer of that Shabbos, and the older chassid was talking to the groom. He's alive, he should live really well, his wife is alive, she should be well. I don't know if he took too much l'chaim, this older chassid, or he said something unbelievably stupid, or a combination of the two. But he says to the chassid, l'chaim, l'chaim. He said it in Yiddish. What he said was, you know, each marriage requires one male and one female. I know your cow. She is truly a male. Then you're probably the female. But as long as you have one of each, it works out. Unfortunately, what he said had truth, and unfortunately, he didn't have to say that. And it was so wrong that now 69 till 68 till today, a lot of years have passed. My ears are still red from what I heard then. So you need one of each. Ideally, you know, the Gemara says the world cannot exist without boys, schorim and nekevos. Ashrei mi shebanav schorim, oy lemi shebanav nekevos. Fortunate is he, and the word banov literally means sons, even though when it's used in that context it means children. It literally means, fortunate is he whose sons are male, woe is to him whose sons are females. And it's talking psychologically, even though literal pshat it means his children. In other words, that boys are better than girls. Why would they say woe? We'll discuss the Gemara another time. Just giving you the idea that for men need to know that they have to be men. And with being a man comes the responsibility of leadership, of responsibility, of being a breadwinner, and to bring in the right values into the home. What a man isn't is he's not the boss. When I say he's not the boss, I don't mean he's not supposed to be the leader. I don't mean he's not supposed to be one who carries the final responsibility. But he doesn't govern like a boss. And a boss who governs like a boss is a terrible boss. A good boss walks softly and carries a big stick. A good boss gives his employees, his subordinates, a sense of their value and their opinion is important, even if it's absolutely clear that he is the boss, he can fire them at will, etc., etc. Even the greatest bosses who are tyrants are not respected. They're feared, they're not revered, people are afraid of them. Some of them died in recent years, books have been written about them. They were not nice people, they weren't nice bosses, but it might work to a certain extent in a business. It certainly does not work in a family. A good boss works with consensus. A good husband achieves his consensus with his spouse. How do you achieve consensus with your spouse? From personal experience, I've done a lot of things. I do a lot of things. I've been a judge, Dayan in Edinburgh. I've been an arbitrator in disputes, and I've been a mediator in disputes. I'm not going to go into the distinction between a judge and an arbitrator, but let me talk about the difference between an arbitrator and a mediator. An arbitrator, like a judge, has to take in all the facts and render a decision. And if people signed an arbitration agreement, they are bound by the arbitrator's decision. Mediation is something completely different. Mediation is a voluntary commitment of those who are part of the mediation. They don't have to listen to the mediator. They don't have to agree to the mediator. The mediator needs to convince them that it is in their best interest to come to a mediated resolution and to encourage them and to guide them and to allow them, the two disputants, to craft the resolution. By guiding them, he might even plant some ideas in their minds, but at the end, it is their consensus that is critical. Without their consensus, the mediation fails. And with the consensus, a good mediator gets the two parties to feel they crafted the resolution to the issue that eluded them before. It may not be exactly as they looked at the picture going in, but they are quite satisfied and pleased. The problem is resolved. Gave a little, took a little, it all worked out. Marriage is, and the role of the husband in marriage is much more like a mediator than like an arbitrator or a judge. You're not the boss. You have the responsibility to mediate the issues that come up that have the potential to be a dispute. Sometimes they are an outright dispute. And you don't get to say, this is my way, this is the way it's going to be. If you do that, you are asserting your bosshood, not healthy for the marriage. So how do you achieve consensus? So let me tell you what marriage is. partnership between two people. Marriage is more of a merging. We're men who talk business analogies. A partnership is two. There is the One World Alliance. I think there's 7 airlines aligned so they can share the passengers and they can have this share the same code when you make a reservation for going from here to that. But American Airlines and U.S. Air are merging, and one day, in the not too distant future, there will no longer be two companies that are being integrated. They are one. I don't know what it's going to be called, American U.S., I don't know what the name is going to be, but it's going to be, there's no longer going to be a separate identity for American Airlines and U.S. Airlines. You know that word you hear at weddings, or even at a Chaim, they often say it. The joy, the happiness of a wedding is that these are two souls. The couple are two souls that were once one in God's master plan, and they took different paths down to this world. One ended up in the body of a male, the husband, one ended up in the body of a female, the kala. And now this is a reunion of the two halves of the soul that were once one, and now they are reunited. Every once in a while we read in the paper about a brother and a sister who got separated as children during the Holocaust, and someday they find out that my brother is alive, my sister is alive, and they get reunited. And we all feel for that joy of the reunion of the long-lost siblings who didn't know that the other one existed. In a marriage, it is that exact same joy. And this is the reunion not of two souls, but when they remarry, they become the one that they once were. So a marriage is not a union of two, but it's actually a union of one, two become one, or, as I was saying, all right, we'll get there in a minute. You all know this is one of the most common little anecdotes about Rabbi Aryeh Levine, a tzaddik from Yerushalayim, who was once taking his wife to a doctor, and he said to the doctor, his wife's foot was hurting her, Rabbi, her foot hurts us. He didn't say her foot is hurting her foot is hurting us. He saw her foot and her foot pain as his pain as well. That is an anecdote which gives it graphically that a couple are not a partnership, but the merger of two people. Generally speaking, we have friends, we're happy with them, get along well with them, we like them, we even love them. All relationships are self-centered. Underlying every relationship is what is in it for me. That's just the way it is. People who have friendships for 5 years, and in the 6th and 7th year, friendship slowly dies. Doesn't have to be a big breakup. It can be just our interests went in different directions. What really happened is when the friendship was well and healthy, each of us gave and each of us got. When there was an imbalance in the giving and in the receiving, that relationship ends. And relationships do end. Marriage is a different kind of, marriage is not meant to end after 5 years. Marriage is meant to live a lifetime. How do you keep a friendship going for a lifetime? There are relationships that do last a lifetime through thick and thin. And that is family relationships. Parents, children, brothers and sisters. I have a set of twins. They're 29 today, but they were once little kids, a boy and a girl. And they were 2 and 3, they fought with each other like little kittens. When they were 6 and 7 and 8, they fought like dogs and cats. And I remember my daughter Chibi said to me, pushing me, "I'm not your twin anymore. I hate you." And he said, "You can't divorce me." And that's so they stayed twins. Marriage is a unique relationship. On one hand, along the line that a marriage is a union of two that become one, it is raising up the ahava hatluya b'dor, the relationship that is based on what's in it for me, which is the underlying theme of normal relationship. Good marriage transcends the what's in it for me and it raises it to the level of a bris, a covenant. The original word bris, the covenant, like the bris ben Absarim, Abraham, when he walked with God through the animals that were cut in half. And that symbolized, just as the two halves of the animal are one, likewise the people walking through the halves of the animal are now one. In the Torah it was Abraham and Hashem. In a covenant between a husband and a wife, they raised the relationship of the courtship, which was two separate people going through a shotgun or not going through a shotgun, asking themselves, is this a good marriage for me? Not what's in it for him or her, what's in it for me. That's what you're supposed to be thinking about when you're dating. But when you get married, it's no longer what's in it for me, it's what's in it for us, and how can I enhance our marriage, and how can I help my partner. Except you cannot divorce your twin sister, but you can divorce your spouse. You can have this covenant, and then you can break it. It is breakable. So you have an ideal here that in God's master plan, we are one, and if we don't work on earning the mutual respect of each other, having respect for each other, that marriage can work. So that's the uniqueness of the marital relationship. It's important to remember one more thing, and that is what the Gemara says. It's also a well-known Gemara that Ish ve'isha zachu shkina shroya b'nei, a man and a woman are meritorious. God dwells in their midst, The Gemara has a word image. Ish is spelled Aleph Shin with a Yud, Ish. Isha is spelled Aleph Shin with a Hey. Yud K is God's name. Eish is a fire. If they have God in their midst, then they're Zochel, they are meritorious. And if God is not there, they are both Eish, they are two fires, and they will consume each other. What the Gemara is saying is that by the nature of two individuals, each one with their own ego, and each one with their own interests, when you put them together, for the long haul, there is the potential danger unless there is something overriding which a value and a cause and a principle that they both subscribe to that is greater than themselves that enables them to have that unity. In Jewish marriage, that third entity is Hashem. God is the partner in every marriage. If you subscribe to God's role in the partnership, that will guide you through thick and thin and avoid many issues. If not, you are like everybody else in the world, all the potential pitfalls of marriage. People who forget that are subjected to the regular pitfalls of marriage. I may give you a personal example of this. I want to talk about myself, especially in this. I guess this is not to be a compliment, but this is a real point. In 1994, I was asked to move to New York to take over the directorship of the Rabbi Gershon. It was a very challenging position. She had some serious problems, and they asked me to come to New York and do it. And my wife, second wife, we were married for 6 years. So I had a lot of little kids at home, relatively little. Some of them were, the others were 9 or 10 then. That would either mean me moving to New York and leaving the family behind and coming back on a regular basis, which I did for a number of months, or picking up the entire family, lock, stock, and barrel from California, moving to New York. Neither one was very on the track that I was very desirable. I needed my wife's consensus. She very much did not want to go. She says, I don't want to go. We had this discussion back and forth for a number of days. And then she asked me, why do you want to go? I said, I don't want to go either. So why are we talking about going to New York? She knew the background. I think this might be what Hashem wants from me. I don't want to go. Why would I leave sunny Southern California to go to New York in October, in November, in December, in January? But when she heard that changed her attitude completely. It's not that I wanted to go and she didn't want to go. I didn't want to go either. But if she saw and agreed to my vision that perhaps this is what Hashem wants for me now, I said, okay. Oh, we'll go. I went, we all went, then we came back. That's another story. At a certain point after 17 months, Hashem said, all right, we've accomplished what we're supposed to, now go back. Okay, but the point that I'm trying to bring out in this is, if we are governed by what we want, that is the determinant, then I want one thing, and my spouse wants something else, we are in conflict. If we go to the consensus, now in terms of a partnership, there's all sorts of partnerships. I'm not a lawyer, but there's a lot of kinds of partnerships where there's the general partner, and then there are the limited partners. A person needs to look at a marriage. God is the general partner, and we are the limited partners. And we always have to refer, what does the general partner really want the limited partners to be doing? And then you have a successful partnership. Okay, so I have more to say. I'm going to bring this to a end for today. So what I've said is that the man has special leadership responsibilities in the family, but his leadership needs to be integrated with consensus, by consensus, and in order to achieve consensus, biggest challenge for a man is to let go of his ego. We have egos. That is the driving force that motivates us, especially men. A man in his marriage needs to harness and subdue his ego and see his wife as an integral part of who he is, an integral part of what the family is made up of, and to appreciate everything that she contributes and brings to the marriage. In normal partnerships, I'm involved right now in a dispute between two people in a business. One invested money, the other invested sweat equity. One did all the work, and the other gave all the money. They're supposed to be 50% partners. They're fighting like cats and dogs. The partnership will terminate the next year. As a mediator, it wasn't difficult to figure out what the problem is. One guy is putting in 12 hours a day, sweating for the last 10 years, and he doesn't think the guy who put in the millions of dollars appreciates it. And the other guy is saying, yeah, the guy's working hard. I work hard too. I put in all the money. He didn't put in a penny, not a penny. Neither of them appreciates the other one's sacrifice to make that a viable business. They don't appreciate each other. There's no basis for partnership. All right, so I'll conclude with a quote from the Medrash. There are Jewish Sfarim that have chapters on marriage. This is from the Ramban, the Menorahs Hamor, the quote of famous Medrash. And remember this when you go home. Treat your wife like a queen, she will treat you like a king. If you treat your wife like a charwoman, she'll treat you like a slave. If you treat her as a woman, you need to give her what she needs. If he gives her what she needs, she will give him what he needs. To be continued. Some conclusions to this idea. Next week we'll go into more details. And if anybody has any questions, now's the time. I use the word charwoman. The letter says shifta. Shifta means maid. That's Servants. See, we have sanitized English words. It's less than a maid, less than a servant. It means a woman's slave. I chose Carlo because that has that connotation.
Are you available here?
Right?
Are you available here?
I'm in the spirit of my wife.
What about other couples?
I sometimes help people with their breath. My wife actually does not practice. But that's a separate thing.
Those who